It's time for some Monday afternoon quarterbacking. From RTV6 Sports, this is Horseplay.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Horseplay. I'm Dave First, and oh, hi. It's Jim Sorgi, the former Colts quarterback, everybody, just joining us. All right, TV secrets. Now we're going to hook him up, all right? You got a earpiece over there. You got a microphone. It's okay. It's all good. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're with us here on the RTV6 app, IndyChannel.com, as we take a look back at the Colts' first win of the season. And gladly, finally, they got that first win, right? Because, in fact, I'd say about 4:15 or so yesterday afternoon, there was probably a collective sigh around Central Indiana. Whew! Finally getting the win. You need some help? This is your first rodeo? You've never done this mic thing before?
It's all twisted. Normally we wear jackets.
I texted Jim. I said, I think the studio is probably going to be warm today. So, ixnay on the Ackett J, and then we get in here, and then all of a sudden it's chilly. So, but just bear with me. You all right? Here we go. By the way, it's once again a cast of thousands. Brad Brown's going to Skype in from parts unknown. We also have PJ, who is back with us this week. Back in PJ's mom's basement. Hi, PJ. How you doing today?
Doing well. The smell is a little bit better down here, but not much.
You said I'm sorry. We caught you late on that. You said the smell is better.
Yes, the smell from last week's dumpsters to mom's basement. She keeps it a little cleaner than Tow Yard's back.
Oh, that's right. Remember, we were at Tow Yard Brewing Company.
That's right.
A week ago, and once again, we thank those. How much fun was that? I don't know how much fun it was for you because you were by the. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah. Wouldn't mind doing it again,
I think we should go back sometime. The great folks, Sean Cannon, the great folks at Tow Yard Brewing Company. How about you, PJ? Did you enjoy the experience at all?
The samples that I had were excellent.
You had a couple samples because I was worried about that for a second.
Oh, no, need not be worried. It was a good evening. I made it to the game. I know there was some concern there, but great place, great smell. I mean, again, just a little bit better down here, not much.
Can you hear PJ? Do you have your earpiece in? Do I have to do everything for you?
No, I'm sorry.
Hang on, everybody.
This is what happens when you go to Nashville for a football game. You end up
staying
for the live music late. And
you're a little late.
I'm just a tad late.
Should you run laps?
I was actually right on time if you're going by time frame, but.
Oh, this is true, actually. I'll give you credit. Can you hear now?
But with the whole setup, PJ, talk to me.
Hey.
Got him.
Welcome.
PJ?
Got him.
Welcome.
All right.
PJ, how'd your picks do this week? Did you make any money fantasy-wise?
Good. Yes. I had a combination of Tom Brady, Keenan Allen, and I forget the other receiver I had. But something like 100 points just between 3 players. So I had a good week.
I take it you probably didn't have Andre Johnson.
No, I did not have Mr. Johnson.
Did not have.
Who was not seeing much of the ball at all.
We'll talk about that. Much more to come here. Again, Brad Brown will join us here, Skyping in as well. Sam Kuvaris, sportscaster, longtime sportscaster down at News 4 in Jacksonville. We'll go live to him as well to look ahead to week 4 already. Ready? Man, this thing flies.
I know. First quarter of the season's over after next week. Hopefully we'll be 2-2. I think if we can carry on the momentum that we gained in the fourth quarter, how the team played in the fourth quarter is what I think everybody envisioned for the entire season.
Right.
Offensive and defensively, and hopefully we can continue what we did on offense, because the defense has actually been playing pretty good these first couple weeks. They've just been on the field a whole heck of a lot. So if the offense can keep rolling like they did in the fourth quarter, I think we'll get back on track and start racking up the wins.
That's the thing. In the first 2 losses, I don't know if people really grasp. I mean, that Monday night game, say what you want, but the defense did its job for the most part, don't you think?
I thought the Monday night game, I thought the defense kept us in the ball game.
Right, absolutely, which is all you need.
Which is what you want
with that offense
to do. Yeah, they got you a turnover. Obviously, the turnovers for us in that Monday night game were unexcusable. I mean, just dropping the ball on the 1-yard line for Frank Gore, and then some of the interceptions Andrew has thrown. Some of the interceptions Andrew threw yesterday were just bad interceptions, especially that last one, thrown off his back foot and not seeing the defense underneath defense and getting it picked off. But, I mean, the defense, the way they've been stopping the run, and the guys we've had hurt, you got to look at the guys we've had hurt in the secondary. For them not to be on the field, Darius Butler, Greg Toller, 2 of your top 3 defensive backs not being available to you. Jaleel Brown goes down for a play or two yesterday, but some of the other guys stepped up. I thought Vontae had a good game. He had a couple penalties, but overall just played well. And then, Josh Thomas, the newly acquired Josh Thomas.
Who was just signed Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, shows up.
How good did he look?
Right.
He looked great. I mean, made the hit on Delaney Walker that popped the ball in the air. Dwight Lowery was able to get it and go for the touchdown. But just the tackles, I thought he played really well, and Jaleel played good. At times, I thought we were giving them a little bit too much space in the secondary, respecting them too much.
Right.
But the game plan didn't change for the Colts. Normally, they like to bring pressure, go man-to-man, and that's exactly what they did with these guys, just like if we had Toller, Darius Butler, and Vontae in there. So.
Here's the big lead. Let's get right to it in case you missed it and living under a rock or something crazy. 35-33. It was just your everyday 35-33 win for the Colts. Luck's 13th and biggest fourth quarter comeback of his career. Down 13 with 7 minutes to play. 2 touchdowns for Gore yesterday. 2 takeaways for the Colts D. And, of course, when we say 2 takeaways, it was all about Dwight Lowery, the former Jag, Jet, and 1 year with the Atlanta Falcons as well. Ugly wins count the same as the pretty ones, right?
You're right. I mean, it was a great game for fans, for TV, for people to watch because of the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs. But for coaches and players, I mean, it's heart attacks. You have heart attacks. You're up 14, you're down, 13, 27-14, then you're back up by 8, and then they're going for 2 to tie it. It's crazy.
They scored 27 unanswered. You're thinking, okay, what's on ABC at this point?
And if you flipped, if you went away from that game, you missed a.
I'm on Twitter going, hang on, folks, hang on, wait a minute.
Stay.
Like I'm working for the other network or something. But anyway, you talked about the zone defense in the back for going nickel and dime a lot without Toller and Butler. Do you think that'll be a trend moving forward at all? Or do you think once those guys get healthy, we'll see more of the man-to-man up against the wide receivers?
Well, I think it was a good mix yesterday. We did play some man-to-man with the guys we had in there. We didn't. I thought we
saw a lot of zone though.
We saw a lot of zone, and I just think it's
which is smart football, I think.
But it really didn't look like the guys were used to playing zone.
Right. I'll give you that.
You sit there and you practice man-to-man because that's what you're going to do when your starters are out there. You don't necessarily going to practice for when they're not out there. So that's why you always hear when players get hurt, coaches say we're not going to stray away from the plan because if it's like starting over basically. But you did see them try to use a little bit of zone in the back end. But I think as these guys get more and more comfortable, and if we're going to miss Butler and Toller for a long time, I think these guys are going to have to start playing man-to-man. But I did notice that we started to get a little bit more pressure with not bringing as many guys yesterday as we normally have to do. Normally when we just rush forward, we have a really hard time getting pressure. But yesterday we might have had to add a guy here or there, but we got pressure on Marcus Mariota. We couldn't get him to the turf early, but later on we started to get him to the turf and get some turnovers.
I thought the Titans could have gone a little bit more to Delaney Walker because once they got that matchup in the secondary, because it was either DeQuell or all of a sudden a DB has to come back and try to. And Delaney is not the typical tight end. It's not the 6'5", 250. I mean, he's a little shorter, 6 foot, 250 pound or so.
But he plays bigger. He plays bigger
than his
great
hands.
Great hands. He catches everything. I actually remember when he was a free agent and he went from San Francisco to Tennessee, I was like, what are the 49ers doing? This guy is a player. And he's a player for the Tennessee Titans. He's their #1 target, I believe, offensively throwing the football. You got guys like Kendall Wright, who's a stud, don't get me wrong, but I think when they need a play to be made, they go to Delaney Walker. And you're right, he found holes in the middle. He was able to push up and beat whatever man was playing him yesterday. But you did see the Colts go a lot of dime nickel with Clayton Geathers and Josh Thomas, and it was interesting, the game plan. But I think the reason the Tennessee Titans numbers were so inflated and they did such a great job on offense is because their offense was on the field all dang day.
Right.
I mean, the time of possession was ridiculous.
Right.
And when you put a defense on the field for that long, obviously the plays are going to rack up, the yardage are going to rack up, and your defense is going to get tired. Sooner or later, the running game is going to start to work. I didn't think they could run the ball early in the game, but once they were on the field so much, they started to be able to run the football. But once the Colts, in the 12.5-minute mark in the fourth quarter, once they sustained that 98-yard drive or whatever it was, took 6-7 minutes off the clock, the defense came back on the field fresh as ever and ready to roll.
And talking about that, take a look inside the numbers here this afternoon on Horseplay on the RTV6 app, and some bizarre numbers really on both sides of the fence, and you were just alluding to the time of possession between the second and third quarters. Tennessee had the ball 23 minutes. Colts had the ball just 7 minutes. I've never seen something that lopsided. over a 30-minute span or so. But Luck in the fourth quarter, dude was nearly perfect, 11 of 13, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. And with Chuck and Luck at the helm, the Colts are 20-4 in one-possession games. That's a winning percentage of .833, best of anyone in the NFL, which is just, I mean, if you're going to win some games, that's how you do it right there.
I think the team just had to be reminded of how to win. You know, sometimes you're so used to winning, but you don't remember how to win after a long period of time off. And you kind of got to learn it each season. I feel like yesterday in the fourth quarter, we learned how to win again, win a close game, get back in the game when we were down. But, I mean, it all is going to fall on the shoulders of Andrew Luck. I thought in that fourth quarter we started to go no huddle. They started to be a little bit more vanilla on defense. The pace changed. It was quicker. We did a better job in protection. We did a better job running the football because it was more run when we want to run. But it all falls on Luck. You saw his numbers in the fourth quarter, but if you look at through the first 3 quarters, the first half wasn't bad. He was 5 of 8 for about 90 yards, but no touchdowns or no interceptions. But then the third quarter, I think he was 2 of 9 for 25 yards and 2 picks.
Right.
I mean, that's a bad quarter. But then he has that kind of quarter on the positive end in the fourth quarter and was able to come back and win the game.
More on Luck here in a second. They change up front for the Colts offensive line before the game. Costanzo still at left guard. They moved Muhort to left guard. I'm sorry, Costanzo left tackle, Muhort to left guard. Holmes is still in there at center. Thornton comes in for Harriman's at right guard, and then you move Joe Wrights. He got the start at right tackle. There were still, 5 holding penalties. Thornton had 4 of them.
A couple false starts.
A couple false starts in there. All told, though, what did you see in that offensive line? Was it improved from the first couple of games?
I think it was pretty similar to the first couple of games, to be honest with you, until we started to go the no huddle in the fourth quarter. You had the holding penalties. That could just be Hugh being a little off.
First time you see that in
first time
playing time.
Action. And I got to be honest with you, some of the holding penalties that he got called on,
ticky-tack?
Very ticky-tack. Very, just kind of his hand got a little bit outside the inners where you want to be for an offensive lineman. So it was a little ticky-tack. At Muhort's, I don't think he's ready to play the tackle position. I think he'll get there. He looks like a guy that could play that, but he looked really comfortable at guard.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. He looked much more comfortable.
He looked comfortable at guard. And Joe Wright is just one of those guys that can just really go out there and play any position on the offensive line and look comfortable.
Right.
I do think maybe Hugh Thornton's playing time had something to do with Lance Lewis being injured, being a little banged up. So I don't know if that'll be a long-term solution of him starting or when Lance gets healthy, he'll come back out there. I don't know the reason for Todd Harriman's not starting, not playing. It's one of those things. He is, one of the older guys, one of the veterans. So
we'll it's something to keep an eye on as we move forward. Ideally, though, and we saw a lot of this in the first couple of games, how much time should Luck be getting in the pocket to throw the ball? Ideally, 3 seconds?
Ideally 4.
4.
Ideally 4 seconds, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004.
Then the ball's
to sit
gone.
there. Because you look at the guys, it was to the point where he was getting maybe 2 seconds to throw the football. And when you get 2 seconds to throw the football, you have to be really on your game pre and post snap read for a quarterback on what you're getting coverage wise, what side of the field you want to work based on route combinations. Because 2 seconds, you might have time to look at your number 1 and your number 2 option. If you're getting 4, you can possibly look at 3 options and get to your check down. And you saw that later on in the game when we started to go no huddle. They only started to rush 4 or 5 guys. He got much more protection. We started to hit some checkdowns. We did some play action pass. Everybody from the Titans defensive secondary got deep. We hit Jack Doyle on a couple flat routes. We hit Gore on a couple checkdowns. And that's what you have to do when you want to continue controlling that clock and moving the chains. Because when you get behind the chains, and penalties are going to happen, but it's been an inordinate amount of penalties the first couple of weeks. But if you can stay ahead of the chains, 4 yards on first down, 4 yards on second down, and you're going to pick up a first down. And when you're really rolling, you're not even getting to third down. You're going first down, second down, first down, second down, first down, second down, and moving the ball right down the field.
Monday afternoon quarterback stats. Last look back at yesterday's game. Again, Luck, 18 of 30, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did throw those 2 picks, sacked 3 times. 13th fourth quarter comeback, largest again of his career, down 13. The Colts are 15-2 after losses with Chuck and Luck. What do you attribute that to?
For just kind of forgetting about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just moving on to the next week, not worrying about the previous game, the previous opponent. We lost that game. It is over. You cannot get that back. And so many people just sit there and dwell on it. It's the hardest thing for people to do is to get over something and move on. It's hard for a quarterback to get over, and Andrew's the best at it, to get over a bad play or an interception and then move on. You saw yesterday, and it was the first time I really saw it, his body language wasn't what it normally is. Even in losses and games where he's not playing well, normally his body language just tells you,
still up.
I'm
still
okay,
going.
let's
Right.
go, we'll be all right. And yesterday, kind of right there in the third quarter, it didn't look that way.
There's a theory out there, especially on Twitter, and you know how accurate those are. You know, okay, there's a theory that maybe he's banged up right now, maybe a little hurt. I don't know if that's accurate or not. We have no way to tell. I don't think Andrew's going to tell you.
Yeah, he's probably along the lines of a Peyton Manning. You're never going to know the situation in terms of an injury. I don't think he's banged up to the point where it's forcing him not to be able to play the game he wants to play. I haven't seen his mechanics or fundamentals change to where he's doing something because something hurts him. He probably does have a lot of bumps and bruises. My man's been hit. He's been hit a lot these first 3 weeks, and he's probably got some bumps and bruises, and he's probably sitting in that ice bath trying to get right week in and week out. But winning fixes a lot of things.
Right.
It makes a lot of guys that are hurt healthier. It makes bad moods into good moods. It rights a lot of wrong, so to speak. So I think it'll be a different air around the complex today, this week, and I think the guys will be, coaches, organization is going to be in a much better place.
Well, even after the game, you always wonder how big a win is. Even though they were down, they had to come back, and Tennessee scored 27 unanswered. But after the game, you could just tell.
Yeah.
This was big.
Well, you could just tell how we were doing post-game interviews on the radio, and you could just tell the guys were just drained. Right. I mean, you knew those 2 losses, and it wasn't so much the game itself that we won, it was the 2 losses and just being, it was more mentally draining than a physically draining, I would like to say. But now it's gone. You know what I mean? That is gone. You can move on. Much better place right now, in a mentally a much better state.
I dug the fact that Pat McAfee called the audible and ran the fake punt.
I got to be honest with you, from what it looked like, the ball was high. He jumped, he caught it. As he was coming down, it looked like he peeked to look at the end, and he saw nobody there, and I think he just took off. Because it looked like he was going to punt. He was like, kind of thought about it in his head and just took off. So I think it was the snap being high that kind of helped that play kind of develop, and I think it was Pat being Pat and just seeing it.
I mean, I'm not going to say it changed the momentum of the game, but it just seemed like there was a little extra juice after that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But you want to know what I really thought changed the whole momentum of the game?
Right.
It was we were down 10. The Titans had the ball. They had the ball on the 1-yard line, and we held them to a field goal. I think that really changed the momentum of the game. It kept us within a 2-score game because, honestly, at 10 points, you going to 13, 2 touchdowns can win that game still. Going from 10 to 17, now you need at least 3 scores, 2 touchdowns, and a field goal, and that is just a different mindset. It kind of takes the wind out of your sails, and it kind of you lose a little bit more hope at that point.
Let me throw this at you. The Jarrell Freeman sack to start the fourth quarter that pushed the Titans out of field goal range.
Yep.
You're looking at another 3-point. I mean, look, it's everything. As you watch a game, it's funny. As you watch a game, you don't think about, okay, that play was
Little
pretty
plays,
key.
yeah.
And this was, and you look back at them, man, that was a big
Huge
play there. Yeah.
Huge play. And I'm a big advocate, and I'll preach this about the game of football until the day I die. The team playing the best is the team when the offense is doing what they have to do in terms of, yes, scoring points, but having the ball, possessing the ball, taking some time off the clock, keeping the defense on the sideline so they stay fresh. The defense's job is to, not to let the other team score points, obviously, but getting after the quarterback, creating turnovers, giving the offense a short field at times to score points.
It's all
special teams. If you're not going to make big plays like Pat made on the fake punt, be consistent. Don't give up big plays. And when a team is playing like that, you are very hard to beat. Now, you're not going to get that all the time. Obviously, the offense is going to struggle at times. The defense is going to struggle at times. But then the other side of the ball has to pick up the slack for that side of the ball.
Absolutely. I believe we have Brad Brown standing by, Skyping in from parts unknown as usually does. We're going to catch up with Brad here in a second. How about some fantasy figures? Back to PJ in PJ's mom's basement. And what were you keeping an eye on in this fantasy figure yesterday, PJ?
Lots of things. Some fewer injuries than weeks past, so it certainly helps when we're starting to look toward next week. I don't have as many must-replace type of situations as we've had. Ben Roethlisberger certainly.
Big Ben going down.
The biggest story, but I mean, fewer than in weeks past. So, if you're looking for quarterbacks, Andrew Luck next week, you got to imagine that if this week was the emotional barrier that was broken, if you saw Tom Brady against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you know that they got torched. Mm-hmm. And when Mr. Luck comes to town, there's a future there. It's been one of those kind of iffy situations with Andrew so far this season from a fantasy perspective, because the guy is going to get an opportunity to throw the ball. And he was, as we mentioned in week 1 of Horseplay, he was one of the top overall picked quarterbacks. So he's disappointed a lot of owners who gambled on him in the first round. But I think he'll be back, especially with this getting over the first win hump, and he's got an easy defense to go against.
Hey, PJ, let's talk about Frank Gore, right? I mean, we
Frank,
finally saw a Frank Gore that I think we all expected to see yesterday. I was asked pregame if he was going to get 100 yards. I said no just because I didn't think he would get the touches. I feel like he's got to get 20 touches to get 100 yards and average 5 yards, obviously, per carry. Yesterday, I think he had 14, 15 touches for right around 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Is this something, because I think it is, where we're going to see this kind of Frank Gore? Because it looked like he was running with a purpose, running like he had something to prove yesterday after that fumble against the Jets.
Yeah, I think you're spot on as far as assessment. To be considered, as it was the Tennessee Titans defense. We're not talking about a lockdown group here. But certainly I think you're onto something. I mean, quiet start, as I think the entirety of the Indianapolis Colts have suffered from. I mean, if you only score 21 points in the first 2 weeks, you're not going to get too much off the ground there. But I think when you put him into the mix with the way that, again, back to the emotional barrier, he's another guy you could probably start as a running back number 2. You don't want to go with 1 just yet because you want to kind of see the trends, but I think it's a good observation, Jim. A couple other points for must pickups this week if you don't already have them, and this is a sad story. Andy Dalton's only in about 30% of leagues as a starter. He's been lighting it up, excuse me. A.J. Green obviously playing out of his mind this week helped him. But he's a legit starter now. He is someone that you can look to produce, and the Bengals might be the real deal. There was a headline this morning on an unnamed sports website that said, "Are the Bengals Super Bowl contenders?"
Here we go.
Yeah,
How many times have we heard that with the Bengals, right?
Exactly.
Real deal in the regular season, no doubt. We'll see. What kind of Andy Dalton we get in the fall season.
It's still September. It's still September. A couple other pickups. Thomas Rawls, Seattle. Marshawn Lynch faced with some injuries. Rawls, an undrafted rookie. 16 carries, 104 yards. He looked fantastic. And of course, the Seahawks dominated that game as a result.
Jimmy Graham back on track, right? Didn't he have a pretty big day yesterday fantasy-wise, a couple touchdowns?
He looked fiery. And, he had just complained, I think, not being happy with where he was in the system. And I don't know if that was the spark that was needed, but Russell Wilson found him on some nice throws, and Jimmy made it happen, breaking a couple of tackles afterwards. So, he's certainly another one to watch. Speaking of tight ends, I got your pick of the week here as soon as I get out of my lock screen.
Lay it on me, man.
Tight end for the Washington Redskins. You might not have heard of this guy unless you've been paying real close attention. Jordan Reed. Yeah. Yes. Kirk Cousins is finding him. He has the 3rd most targets of any tight end in the league, second only to Gronk and Greg Olsen. And that's a good sign for his continued production. The guy has been lighting it up this year. He's sort of flown under the radar, but no longer. The blip has shown up.
How about Kirk Cousins? I watched the game the other night.
Yeah.
And they kept showing shots of RG3 on the sidelines in his sweatsuit. Mm-hmm. It just got painful after a while.
It did.
Because you can tell Cousins is the future. RG3, say what you want about him, he's the past.
Well, I got to be honest with you. If RG3 is inactive, I don't even know why you're keeping him around the team.
Right.
I mean, because it's got to be an uncomfortable situation. If Kirk Cousins is your starter.
If it's uncomfortable on TV.
Yeah. for somebody that's not even associated with the team, right. I gotta agree with you. I don't know why they would have kept him on the 53-man roster just to keep him inactive every week. You got your starter, you got your backup. Just cut ties.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe all I can think.
I'm guessing it's financial, though, isn't it? tied to something?
I don't think it's tied to financially. I think they're going to try to see if maybe they can get a trade
for him.
And get something for him. That would make more sense to me rather than because I believe he came out the same year as Andrew, so this is his 4th year. So he's at the end of his contract. You can do a 5th-year option, but it's not guaranteed or anything like that. You can cut him and still not have to pay him. But I'm wondering if they're going to try to see, hey, let's carry this. Let's pick up the 5th-year option. Let's carry him through training camp next year. Maybe he has a really good training camp. We can trade him and get something for him. And if we don't, then we can cut him then.
PJ, so if you've got Big Ben, what do you do now? Because I'm hearing Ben's out probably, not an ACL, so that's good news for him.
MCL sprain with a bone bruise,
which takes about 4 to 6 weeks. So who's the hot QB out there that many people may not have?
Yeah,
is available?
It's going to be tough to replace Ben. I mean, it just is. Derek Carr surprised this week. And, he was someone who was sort of uncertain going into this year, and I think he was even hurt part of 1 week. But he showed up this week, and Amari Cooper, his wide receiver, I believe rookie out of Alabama. Cooper, he showed up with Derek, and I think those two are now on the same page a couple weeks into the season. So you're not going to get a straight replacement for Ben, but Derek Carr's a good option, in addition to Andy Dalton there, who is the big deal. One last fantasy item for you. My mom agrees because she wanted to pick up Pat McAfee in her Wine Club's fantasy football league, but you can't. You can't pick up punters, but you sure do wish you could with the productivity he's had for this team if you counted, punts inside the 20 for some points,
there's got to be a fantasy league out there somewhere that includes punters. Isn't there? There's got to be.
There must be.
There's got to be.
I'll look for that.
Huh?
I will.
Ask your mom and your mom's wine league.
Hey. She's out right now. She's out at lunch.
PJ.
I will ask her when she gets back.
PJ.
Jim, yes.
Colts receivers. Let's talk about them fantasy-wise. Right?
Okay.
I mean, obviously Dorsett catches a nice little touchdown yesterday. Moncrief has a good second week in a row. Are these players that people are going to try to pick up? Maybe are they too hit and miss right now because you really don't know if they're going to be a week in and week out like a T.Y. I mean, T.Y. had close to 100 yards yesterday.
I think the attention's mostly been on Andre Johnson. He's past sort of the should we worry about continuing to play him? You just can't. You just can't at this point after the couple of weeks that he's had. And we talked about this. But if you are looking for another possible big play receiver, I think either Moncrief or Dorsett, they're good options. They're just risks, right?
Yeah.
There are plenty other receivers out there that are in a number 2 role, even really some tight ends that you can pick up in their place. But really, Andre Johnson's been the biggest disappointment because he was in top 5, top 6, top 7 rounds because people thought he'd be right alongside T.Y., something like a T.J. Houshmandzadeh and Chad Johnson of 10 years ago. But it's just not panned out the way it is, and you can say what it is, if it's age, if it's targets, if it's the offensive line, whatever. But you can't trust that week to week.
See,
now.
I'm of the mindset, and personal note, I actually have Andre Johnson on my team.
Ouch.
And
Sorry, Dave.
so I'm of the mindset that I'm just going to ride it out because I think sooner or later things are going to pick up for Andre.
It's upsetting because he did have that big catch yesterday for a big gain that got called back because of a penalty.
Yeah.
And I think that would have kind of sparked him and got him going, but he's just not getting the target, so to speak. I mean, I don't know the exact number of times we threw the ball to him yesterday, but it wasn't a very big amount.
One target, well, 2 with the penalty, but I mean, he was just targeted the one time. He was actually, I think, got tripped up and he was falling to the turf.
And it kind of hit him in the back of the shoulder.
Exactly. So.
And he's only been targeted, I think, 10 times all season. So you think about that through 3 games, you're getting 3 or 4 chances a game. It's going to be tough to amount to much.
I'm not smart enough to figure this out. Why is that the case?
That's something
too early to say?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't know the exact plays that the Colts are calling, so I don't know the exact progression of the receivers in those plays. Obviously, you got to think T.Y. is your number 1 progression, always. You're putting guys in position like you knew the touchdown to Moncrief yesterday that Moncrief was the number 1 guy in that progression. I mean, he ran a double move. You knew Andrew was going to go to him. Got it, the one-on-one matchup. If he didn't get the one-on-one, I think he would have, read somewhere else. It's weird. It's weird. It's just like I don't think they know exactly where they want to place him in terms of receiver alignment. Is it outside? Is it inside? And
I was going to say, this is going to sound kind of crazy. Is he almost better in a tight end role, playing inside as a slot, or maybe even a tight end? I'm just thinking out loud. You don't put Andre Johnson in tight end spot, but I mean,
you saw the Colts use a lot of stack.
The guy's got
yesterday.
talent.
Yeah,
they're not utilizing it for some reason.
Well, it could be just not getting to that part of the progression. It's not. Trust me, it's not saying I'm going to go out here and give this guy this many touches or catches or targets a game. Trust me, it's go through your progression. It's always throw to the open guy. If you want the ball, coaches used to say get open.
Right.
That was it.
Get open.
And a little bit has to do with where the defense is taking Andrew before, pre-snap, post-snap, what side of the field he's reading. But, it was always said that Andre is not a guy that's getting a whole lot of separation. It was even in camp. Everybody's saying he's not beating guys. He's just using his size to shield them and make a catch. You remember the whole radius thing? If you throw with this radius, he's going to make a catch.
Which is something he used his entire career.
Right. So maybe it's just not following through the games.
All right. I'm still going to stick with him. I got 81 on my team.
Watch, he'll blow up this week and have 125 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And that's
so you're saying there's a chance.
Your risk. That's fine, and that's the game we play, right? Well, how about a question for you? It's something you are smart enough to figure out. If you didn't know, we're giving away an iPad Mini. This is not.
They went to the graphic. Hang on. Come back to you. Hang on. There it is.
There's an iPad Mini here. An iPad Mini. Well, this isn't a Mini. This is just an iPad. But we're giving away one, and what we're doing here is we're asking trivia questions. So here's one for you two.
Okay.
Former Colts head coach. Which one was also a former Colts player?
I'm going to say this goes back to the Baltimore Colts. Is that a correct assumption?
It may. Yes.
I'm out.
You're out?
I'm
really?
out.
Just like that? You're tapping out?
If it goes to the Baltimore Colts, I'm out, dude. I was born in '80. I mean, Colts didn't come Indianapolis. I was 4 years old when they became Indianapolis Colts.
Don Shula.
That is correct.
Ah!
Correct. There he is.
Look at this.
All you folks out there watching, go ahead and open up your RTV6 app after you're done here and just tap on that headline that says Watch Horseplay to win an iPad Mini. Enter that answer.
Yeah.
And you will be in the running. And that is much less risky than playing Andre Johnson.
Well, I'm going to enter.
On your fantasy football team. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
I mean,
there you go.
That's probably
if you tap out that quickly, you can't enter.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, you see, it's cheating if you didn't actually know the answer.
You need to give me the answer before the show so I can
look
smart.
Maybe if you hadn't been listening to country music late at night. You got here on time.
There you go.
I would have given it.
That does beg the question. I mean, obviously everybody, the team, very excited after the win. What are plane rides like after a win like that?
Normally it's pretty
loud
and raucous,
whatever,
and the guys are having a good time. Honestly, I think it was the whole physically and mentally draining thing.
They were just glad it was over with.
There wasn't hardly a word. Everybody was kind of knocked out. You could hear some kind of laughing.
It's a short flight too. What,
it was
hour and a half? Hour?
No, I mean maybe 35 minutes
on
the way back. Yeah, it was real quick.
What, you guys are like a G5 or something?
The plane was flying. I looked at the guy sitting next to me. I'm like, we're moving right now. This plane is moving. And it started to get bumpy. I was like, whoa. I put my headphones in. But it was rather calm. You could kind of, it wasn't like they were, I think they're kind of a team that kind of expects to win.
Sure.
So, but I think everybody was just kind of happy it came.
Yeah, and for good reason, too. For good reason. Let's take a look ahead at what is next for the Colts. A little longer turnaround than we had last Monday, and that turnaround from Monday to Sunday and the trip on the road. This time, they are hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1 o'clock kick at Lucas Oil Stadium. Yesterday, they were on the road in New England, and you see the final score, kind of what you might think about Jags-Patriots game looking like. Blake Bortles, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Allen Robinson, the big stud wide receiver for the Jags, 4 catches, 68 yards. T.J. Yeldon, running back, 11 carries, 33 yards. And linebacker Paul, help me out on this last name. Posluszny.
Penn State guy.
Penn State guy. Team high 18 tackles. I always mess that one, Posluszny. LeGarrette Blount, by the way, for the Patriots, 3 touchdowns. As the Jags 6 of 12 on third down. Had 7 penalties for 117 yards.
That's a lot.
In many ways, the Jags are still the Jags.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say?
I would agree with that. I think they're a better team than they were last year. I think T.J. Yeldon at running back gives them another option to go to. Gerhardt at running back last year was not getting it done. Blake Bortles in his second year, I think.
And Toby's still with the team, by the way, and still has a couple of
carries, he'll get
but
a couple.
Not like T.J.
But T.J. Yeldon is the guy. Allen Robinson is a big stud wide receiver. I mean, he had a monster game the week before, and I think it was against Miami. he had like 120, 40 yards in the first half and a couple touchdowns. So obviously they have some weapons, but I think it's one of those games you should win, kind of like the New England Patriots won it. You should go out there because you look at the numbers for the guys for the Jaguars, not bad numbers. Bortles, 242 yards, 2 TDs and a pick, nothing terrible there. Robinson had a good game. Yeldon, that's not a very good average, but you can tell they were having to throw the ball more than run the ball with obviously only 11 carries. So if it's something I do think we should be able to, if we get them here, if we jump on them early and we're playing even a resemblance of that fourth quarter against the Titans, we should beat them. Maybe not as bad as the Patriots beat them, but along those lines.
I want to see what Bortles is like now in year 2. Remember last year he made his debut
against us,
against the
down
Colts,
there,
down on the road,
and he gave him a little spark. You know what I mean?
Doubt.
He gave him a little flash, and they started to end up moving the ball. But that game was so out of reach. Andrew had a huge game. It could have been really bad if a couple guys caught some balls. I remember Kobe Fleener dropped a touchdown that game, but it was still out of reach early. But I expect Andrew to have a big game. I'm hoping we can protect him, we can block it up, and give him some time because I think the big plays down the field are coming this week.
Do you think the O-line will change again? I guess it depends on perhaps the health of Lance Lewis.
I think it'll depend on that. But I don't know if it'll change in terms of where Muhort is in the tackle situation. I think it might just change with
Don't you think Wright's
Lewis.
held his own out there at right tackle?
I thought Wright did a good job.
I thought he did the same thing last year too when he was out there.
I thought he did a good job, and that's a decent defensive line. You got Jarrell Casey, you got Derek Morgan. I mean, those guys get after the quarterback, and their athleticism, the way they play, are going to cause you penalties. But Horton and Dick LeBeau, the defensive minds they had down there in Tennessee, I mean, they can dial it up now. They were moving around. They were bringing people. We've faced 3 really good defenses in terms of blitzing and defensive mind. So it'll be nice to, I'm not going to say get a week off because they have a defensive-minded head coach down there. So.
And Gus Bradley, the former DC, and he's a guy that'll bring it too.
Right, so it'd be nice to just kind of have a good week of blocking it up and maybe go a little bit more no huddle throughout the entirety of this game against the Jaguars than just the fourth quarter against the Tennessee Titans and keep them vanilla, keep the looks something you can pick up, identify, and dominate.
All right, so we apologize. We're having some technical difficulties bringing in Brad Brown, Skyping in from parts unknown. We never know where Brad is.
Yeah, he's all
so
over.
he might be out in some place where you don't have cell signals. Who knows? And also Sam Kavaris, from a sportscaster from News 4 down in Jacksonville, where he was expected to join us as well. That has not happened. Some technical difficulty. We apologize for that. We do, though, have a live line to PJ and PJ's mom's basement.
Yes,
any final thoughts, PJ?
Well, you just touched on what was being floated around the Twitterverse pretty much throughout the entirety of last night. A lot of worry about Andrew early on in the game. First 3 quarters. Oh, this is the last 2 weeks all over again. But all the observations have been from fans, from particularly pulled out a tweet here from Eric Barnes, eBarnes442. He looked bad right up until they went to that no huddle, right up until they started spreading the offense and hurry up. So to your point, Jim, one can only hope that they kind of expand that out for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, and I don't think they have to do it constantly, but I'd start the game like that and then maybe change it up when things are going well. Hey, we got a couple score lead. Let's get into our normal offense. Let's huddle. Let's try to get a drive going like this where we're running the football as much as we're throwing, balance, take some time off the clock and things like that. But it's amazing. And that's the reason why Peyton Manning, the Colts ran a no huddle for so long, and a lot of teams around the league do it, is because it stops defenses from substituting and getting in those crazy looks. And it gets them winded, and if you're not having them walk all over the place, it's easier to identify. They can't get the calls in from the sideline, and it makes life easier on the offense.
It's funny. I remember the first couple of seasons, and you were there too, when Peyton was running the no huddle.
Oh yeah,
it was like revolutionary.
It was crazy.
And then everybody tried to do the same thing. Now everyone's pretty much caught up and is accurately doing the same sort of thing. The crazy stat yesterday, I didn't realize this till they popped it up on the TV. The Colts haven't had an opening drive touchdown in some 19 games.
Yeah, it's been bad. And I was kind of hoping that the Colts, the first game of the year, they won the toss, they got the ball, and the drive was looking good. Remember then, obviously, the penalty.
Right, in Buffalo,
on the Dwayne Allen catch. And we've won every coin toss this year. The last 2 we've deferred. It kind of helped us out in the Tennessee game because we were able to get the ball after halftime. But it didn't help us out in the Jets game. I would like to see our offense you know, maybe now that things are clicking, if we win the toss against the Jacksonville Jaguars or they win and defer, we get the ball and just kind of ram it down their throats on their first drive and get going. Yeah,
you got to. Final thing, PJ, I noticed you have a chair next to you with the word guest on it. Are you actually going to have a guest at some point this season, or how's that going to work?
I am accepting applications. I am
Is that right?
Actively seeking out folks anywhere that would care to join us. You know, just hashtag Horseplay on Twitter, and maybe we'll consider it. I do have to get approval from my mom, though, so it's not always up to me,
right?
If it's guaranteed or not. But yes, we will have a guest at some point.
Does mom have some criteria that you have to pass to make?
Cleanliness, mostly, hygiene.
Cleanliness, really?
And manners typically are the top line criteria. Yep.
Interesting.
I got to meet your mom.
She's a nice lady.
Mom sounds like a
makes a killer ham sandwich.
I was going to say, what are you going to have for lunch?
It's a ham sandwich. It's a ham sandwich Mondays. It's on the calendar. It's delicious.
Victory ham sandwich.
Victory ham sandwich with one hand chomp.
Nice job, PJ. Thanks a lot, buddy. We'll
Nice
see you
job,
next
Dave.
week here
Yes, we
on
will.
Horseplay. In fact, we'll see everybody coming up a week from this afternoon.
Yep.
On week 4 of Horseplay. We'll see you like the Colts on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I do like the Colts. I mean, obviously, yesterday in these next two games, there's no better medicine than playing the AFC South competition. And yesterday, I think, was a little bit tougher than we expected, but Mariota played well.
Right.
We got that win. We were able to pull it out. And I think if we can continue that streak, I think we should win this game this coming weekend.
I'm
and then
with you.
Thursday night, I was telling Bob, we got 3 games in 11 days, but we can really get right in those 11 days.
14 straight against the AFC South. We'll see if it's 15 on Sunday, maybe 16 week from Thursday
Break the record
as well. That'll do it. Week 4, Horseplay, right here on the RTV6 app. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you back here next week, 12:30. Have a good one.